Hi, welcome to the Rittner Floral School in Boston, Mass. I'm Dr. Steve Rittner, and it's a pleasure to welcome you into one of our classrooms today. We got a neat demonstration for you. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. I know I say that all the time, but I mean it. I think you guys are going to enjoy it because what we're going to be doing today is a demonstration on how to make a lovely centerpiece for Thanksgiving. Now, I know the holiday's coming up. You're looking for ideas, ways to make your home look a little bit more festive. This is something that could be put on the table. It could also be put on a sideboard or moved around as you desire. In other words, it doesn't have to be on the table except as a placeholder before the meal is served and perhaps brought back there during dessert and coffee, or put on sideboards or possibly on a coffee table or even an entry area. So let's go to work on it and come up with something interesting. We've got a container. The container is already got our foam in it, and before we do anything as far as our flowers are concerned, we are going to take a little bit of our foliage, and I'm going to take some of my baker fern, and I'm going to do a very, very light greening on baker fern. In other words, I'm going to add a few pieces of our baker fern here and there onto our piece so that we'll have a little bit of our foliage in place on this before we put our flowers in place. I tend to often on these demos have this done in advance, but just because I wanted you guys to get a sense of what we're doing, I'm putting a little of it, and I'm putting it fairly randomly. I'm also going to take some of our fall colored leaves and work some fall colored leaves in here. These are available at this time of the year, and they really add a brightness to our design. And you'll notice by taking a few of these and working them in, it really gives a very, very pretty effect to our designing. These are not leaves I picked up outside. These are things you can get if you're in the trade from your local wholesaler, or if you happen to be a hobbyist, you can get them from floral sources such as your local florist who can pick it up for you. So we're going to take a few of our leaves and just work a little bit here and there into our design before we add any of our flowers to it. And before we add any flowers to it, I'd like to use a slightly different tack this year. Everybody is enjoying these little tiny pumpkins. These tiny pumpkins are so damn cute. They're available in the fall. We enjoy them before Halloween. We use them as decorations during Halloween. But they also are still around, and they're fun to use. And in order to work it in, I've taken a pick and poked it in. Do be careful when you poke them in, however, because if you're not careful, when you use a stick to poke it in here, you don't want it to go through and hit your hand. So do use some caution when you do something like this, because you don't want to hurt yourself in the process. But I think that these things are really quite cute, and they work really, really well for something like this, because pumpkins don't necessarily have to be only for Halloween. Essentially, pumpkins work pretty well for anything that says fall, and that's exactly what we're doing here. We're saying fall with a couple of our little pumpkins in place, and now we've got something interesting to work with. Now we have so many great materials that we can play with when we're talking about things for Thanksgiving and fall kinds of designing. I just love the palette that we have available. The reds, the oranges, the yellows, the browns. We have so many different things. And of course, I wouldn't dare make a design for Thanksgiving without using sunflower. It seems almost a shame to cut it down because it is basically such a great flower with the lengths of stems that we have. But cut it down I am, because by doing it that way we can get a really good effect on it. And I'm going to use another one over facing onto the other side because this is intended as a centerpiece. And generally, my viewer, whenever we're doing centerpiece type things, we like to repeat what we're doing on one side on the other. Now, there's a flower that happens to be one of my favorite flowers. Of course, all of my students tell me that all of my flowers are my favorite flowers. This is called Trick Dianthus. Trick Dianthus. It is a fuzzy, furry flower in a green color, and it is actually a relative of the carnation. It is an amazing flower. Comes only at the present time in this kind of green. It almost feels like moss. It is incredibly durable. You really can't kill the darn thing. It holds up very well, and it's always one of these flowers that gets a lot of comment. People look at it and wonder, what the heck is it? Because it does have a very, very interesting kind of effect. Now let's mix a few other things in here. I've got a yellow Asiatic lily. Let's work that into our design. And then while we're at it, let's work another yellow Asiatic lily over onto the other side so that we have something that's kind of traipsing out over in that direction as well. And if I'm going to put a trichdianthus over here, I'm also going to maybe move a trichdianthus over onto the other side of my design so that in that way we have it facing all the way around on this. So we have some interesting things going on here. Now let's see, what else do I have on my design bench? I have a few other things. Oh, of course, we would not be talking Thanksgiving or fall without some of our roses, and we have some very, very pretty orange roses that are available at the present time. So I'm going to work an orange rose here. I'm going to work another one over here. Let's take another one of our orange roses and place it over here onto this side. And I think you can see, my viewer, how this thing is just gradually coming together very, very nicely. I also happen to have some very, very pretty orange mini gerbs. And so I was thinking about the orange mini gerbs a minute ago when I was starting to place my yellow Asiatic lily in there. So let's take an orange gerbera and place it over onto that side. And we're going to play a little bit more with this. I'm going to take another one and place it over onto this side of the design. In other words, we're putting our materials around here and gradually working them in, filling in with these things so that we end up coming up with something that is, I think, quite interesting. Don't you, my viewer? Now let's take another one of our mini gerbs and we're going to work it over onto this side. So we're coming up with something that is kind of round and ovally in shape on our design. Now we also have some great palms, and palms come in so many different configurations these days. And so what I'm going to do is work a few of our palms into the mix. So I have a palm here and another one over here and still another one over here. I think you can see, my viewer, the whole idea behind, of course, behind Thanksgiving is it's supposed to be, you know, lush and lots of food and, you know, family and so forth. But we want to create the feeling on our design of something that really feels like, yeah, the harvest has come in and it's pretty and we got some lovely things that we're going to work into our design to reflect the bounty of the season. But in the meantime, I am leaving these have fairly good play. Now, if I wanted to on this, I could also add another one of these pumpkins facing over towards the other side. And that's something that I leave you, my viewer, to consider when you're doing some of these things. I used 2 pumpkins in this particular base. I possibly could have snuck in a third one facing over to the other side on this side, but how many you use will often depend upon the size of your container and where you're going to be placing it. So I think you'll see that you can come up with some pretty cool results this way. What do you think, my viewer? I think this is coming along very, very nicely. I'm going to work a little bit more of my leaves right in towards the center. And my mechanics look fairly covered, but if I wanted to, I could take other materials to work in. For example, I could use some of what we call here at Rittner's Stephen hair, which kind of refers to Dr. Steve's hair, but we also use it to refer to Spanish moss. It gives a little bit of texture and makes it feel a little bit more interesting on it, and we can place it all the way around. Other things we could do on this if you wanted to jazz this up further, and again, it depends upon your particular tastes on these kinds of things. I tend to like branchy stuff. So when I do any of my designing, I tend to like to work in a little bit of branchy stuff into it. But some people love branchy things, some people do not. I think it depends upon the person. If you like branchy stuff, it is something that you may want to consider to add to your palette. In other words, taking it and working it in. And notice that I'm doing this last because it makes it so much easier to add a little touch of this as we get towards the completion of our design. So let's go back with our camera a little bit, and you can see the design. I can see that This would work well in quite a variety of different places. So what do you think, my viewer? Quick, easy, and fun. That's the Rittner Floral School way. We hope that you enjoyed this brief demonstration on making a lovely design for Thanksgiving and for the holiday period. We hope that you get out, grab some of these things, get some of these little pumpkins to play with, get some of these miniature gerbs, some of our trick dianthus, a few sunflowers, some different palms, some Asiatic lilies, and some of our holiday foliage, and play with some of these things. I think you'll find that the results can be really great. From all of us here at Rittner's Floral School, I'm Dr. Steve Rittner. We want to thank you for coming in and visiting our school today, and we hope you have a very, very restful, happy, and pleasant holiday season. Thank you.